quarter, they played extremely well, cut the lead, and then to start the third, again, our starters did a heck of a job. And yeah, we had a good balance across the way, and everyone shared it, and that's what it's going to take.
And Chelsea, from a player's perspective, if we could just get your comments on the game.
Yeah, I thought we did a really good job with our defense, especially in the first quarter. I think we allowed 11 points in that first quarter, and so we were able to get on transition, not play too many set plays, and that's what you want. It starts with defense for us.
All right, we'll head out. I don't think any...
Watch that body language carefully. Chelsea Gray just gave us a master class in professional diplomacy, but here's what she's not saying. Notice how Nate Tibbetts talks about rotating everyone through the starting lineup, giving everyone opportunities, mixing matchups. He rattles off names like he's reading a grocery list. Chelsea Gray started all 3 games. Angel Reese got starts. Paige Buchers got starts. Jackie Young, Kelsey Plum, even Kiki Harrigan got rotation starts. But there's one name conspicuously absent from that starting lineup. Caitlin Clark, the player who just broke every rookie record in WNBA history, the player who single-handedly doubled league viewership, has played 3 exhibition games for Team USA and hasn't started a single one. Not one. And before you tell me this is just about rotations and giving everyone opportunities, we need to talk about who's making these decisions and what they said before this tournament even started.
That group impact the flow of the game?
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job. You know, this is a group that hasn't been together very long. We've kind of mixed the matchups, mixed the rotations. We played our players a little bit longer stretches than what we had done in the first 2 games. And so I thought initially they got off to a good start. I probably played them a little bit too long of a stretch at you know, some of them got a little bit tired. But yeah, I love the creativity. I love the shooting with that group. And then obviously with Angel down there rebounding the basketball, it gives our guards room to attack.
There it is. Defense transition, not playing set plays. That's the official explanation for the rotation strategy. But here's the problem with that explanation. Caitlin Clark led the entire WNBA in assists this season with 8.4 per game. She's literally the best transition playmaker in the league. Her entire game is built on pushing pace, creating in the open court, and finding teammates before defenses get set. So when Chelsea Gray says they want to avoid set plays and get out in transition, that should be Caitlin's music. Yet she's coming off the bench behind Chelsea Gray, who averaged 3.8 assists per game this season and played just 24 games due to injury. Now don't misunderstand me. Chelsea Gray is a champion, a 2-time WNBA champion with the Aces, and one of the smartest point guards in the game. But we're not talking about who's better historically. We're talking about who should start right now for Team USA in February 2025, and the numbers don't support this decision.
How we play, and we like it like that. So I think that's prepared us, and obviously being in shape and being in game shape to be able to go up and down. That's one thing, or that's a few things that prepared us for this run right now.
And then also just wanted to ask, well, 2 more. One, I mean, you obviously shared the floor with Angel. Paige Buchers has talked about admiring you growing up, and then now she is your teammate. Wanted to ask, what has it been like watching each of their developments up close?
Yeah, I was yelling at them the other day. I was calling them peanut butter and jelly because they were in the wrong place. But it's really cool, man. A respect for the game, and they just constantly they're constantly getting better. Whether it's defensively, offensively, IQ wise, you know when they're missing, and that's the compliment to any player. You want them on the floor. They impact the game in different ways, but they're impactful.
Listen to how Chelsea talks about Paige and Angel, peanut butter and jelly. She's yelling at them in practice because they're in the wrong place, but she's doing it with affection. She talks about their impact, their growth, how you know when they're missing from the floor. She gives specific examples. Angel's offensive rebounding forces you to box out every possession. Paige reads defenses well and can pass. These are detailed scouting reports from a veteran who's clearly invested in developing the younger players. But notice what's missing from this entire press conference. Not once does Nate Tibbetts or Chelsea Gray mention Caitlin Clark by name when discussing the young players or the rotation strategy. The reporter asks specifically about the lineup that included Kelsey Plum, Caitlin Clark, Paige Buchers, Rhyne Howard, and Angel Reese. Tibbetts responds by praising the shooting and creativity of that group without ever saying Caitlin's name. It's like she's Voldemort. the player who shall not be named.
Just sharing it, sharing knowledge, sharing experiences. Listen, everybody that wears this uniform is great in their own right. It's just sharing experiences, tidbits, different moments to make them better. It's all about impact. If I am able to impact and make them a percent better, then I've done my job. But also like enjoying the small moments and the moments that on the bus and the moments that we're competing and we're coming into the timeout. I think those are the moments that you miss later down the road. And so just telling them to embrace that now as you're younger, and then you look back on them like, okay, it's the building blocks for a legacy that you hope to create.
Now we're getting to the heart of it. Chelsea talks about legacy, about sharing knowledge and experiences with the next generation. She gets emotional talking about impact, about making players even 1% better. And this is genuine. You can hear it in her voice. She cares about this. But here's the question nobody's asking in that press room. If this is really about developing the next generation and building chemistry for future competitions, why wouldn't you start the player who's going to be the face of USA basketball for the next decade? Caitlin Clark is 23 years old. Chelsea Gray is 32. In the 2028 Olympics, Caitlin will be 26 and entering her prime. Chelsea will be 36 and likely retired. So if we're building for the future, if we're creating habits and chemistry like Chelsea keeps mentioning, shouldn't the starting lineup reflect that future? Unless this isn't actually about building for the future. Unless there's something else going on here.
Chelsea being the captain of the team and the veteran, helping like Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, and Yoris, the young guys of the team, how you can advise them to be like a great team and great player on and off the court.
Whenever you put this uniform on, you're playing for something bigger than yourself, and I just tell them to embrace that. With that comes great responsibility. You wear this with pride, but there's a standard when you wear this uniform. It's a winning standard. It's always been that way, and that's the mentality and the culture that people before me has built, and hopefully we sustain that. I tell them to have fun with it. It's exciting. You don't get this time back. You don't get the time back that you're playing with other people. So embracing that time and enjoying playing USA basketball.
There's the word again, standard. Chelsea uses it 3 times in 48 seconds. There's a standard when you wear this uniform. It's a winning standard. That's the culture people before her built. And she's right. Team USA has won 7 consecutive Olympic gold medals in women's basketball. That's an incredible legacy, but let's talk about what that standard actually means and who gets to define it. Because here's what we know. Cheryl Reeve, the head coach of Team USA Women's Basketball, is also the head coach and general manager of the Minnesota Lynx. She's the person who left Caitlin Clark off the Olympic roster in July 2024, choosing to take players like Dearica Hamby instead. And when that decision got criticized, when fans and analysts questioned how you leave off a player who's averaging 19 points and 8 assists as a rookie, the response from USA Basketball was about experience, about players who've been in the program, about maintaining continuity. That word, standard, it's not about performance, it's about who's been in the club and who hasn't.
You said, look, we're not trying to defend anything. We're just here to sharpen ourselves. As we get down to the last 2 days, it's going to be a dogfight for those tickets to the World Cup. How do you guys stay motivated yourselves?
We're trying to get better every single day. Listen, this is a new group. There's some new faces, and so we're trying to get our chemistry and build that. So when we come back together, we can kind of pick up where we left off. And so we're playing for something bigger than just this moment. We're trying to build habits. We're trying to build, obviously the culture is winning, but we're building habits to get there. It just doesn't happen in a day. There's a lot of building blocks that go with that. And so when your standard is winning every single time, you want to put your best foot forward.
Beautiful. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Chelsea.
you, guys.
Congrats on the win.
Listen to how the reporter frames this question. Every other team is fighting for World Cup qualification. Team USA already has their spot locked. So how do you stay motivated? And Chelsea's answer is perfect. We're building habits. We're building chemistry. This is a new group with new faces, so we're trying to establish continuity for when we come back together. Except it's not really a new group, is it? Chelsea Gray was on the Olympic team. Jackie Young was on the Olympic team. Brianna Stewart, Aja Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu, they were all on the Olympic team. The only genuinely new faces are Caitlin Clark, Paige Buchers, and Angel Reese. And of those three, only one isn't getting starts. The one who happens to be the biggest star in women's basketball right now. The one who sold out arenas everywhere she played this season. The one who brought millions of new fans to the WNBA. So when Chelsea talks about building habits and chemistry, we have to ask, habits for who? Chemistry for which players? Because if Caitlin isn't starting these exhibition games in February, what makes anyone think she'll start when it actually matters?
All right, Nate Tibbetts took the podium today to address things about the game. Caitlin Clark not starting. I believe there's some agenda behind this. Let's make this very clear. Chelsea Gray has started all 3 games. We have seen Angel restart games, Paige Becker start, Kelsey Plum started, Jackie Young started. We've seen everybody start. I think Stephanie White started one of the games. It's been absolutely ridiculous. We watched Kiki Iriafin get a start. It's only a couple games left. They said that they was rotating everybody into starting lineup and doing this and doing that. But it appears that Caitlin Clark is stuck on the outside looking in. And I feel like I have an idea why. We got to take a listen to what Nate Tibbetts had to say.
Now we come back to where this started. The original voice talking about an agenda. And honestly, after watching that entire press conference, after listening to every non-answer and carefully worded response, it's hard to disagree because here's what makes this so obvious. Cheryl Reeve wasn't even at this game. She's back coaching Duke. She appointed Nate Tibbetts, an assistant coach, to run these exhibitions, and Tibbetts is following a very specific playbook. Rotate everyone through the starting lineup, except Caitlin Clark. You want to know why? Because if Caitlin starts and dominates, if she proves she should have been on that Olympic roster, it makes Cheryl Reeve's decision look even worse than it already does. It validates every criticism that was thrown at USA Basketball last summer. It proves that politics and personal preferences matter more than performance. So instead, we get this elaborate rotation strategy that somehow manages to give everyone except Caitlin a chance to start. And before anyone says this is conspiracy theory territory, let's remember what happened at the Olympics. Team USA struggled against Belgium, barely beating them by 9 points in a game where their offense looked stagnant for long stretches. They beat Germany by just 11. These weren't dominant performances. These were grinded out wins where additional playmaking and shooting could have made a significant difference. The exact skills Caitlin Clark brings to the table. Here's what makes this significant beyond just one player's role on one team. This is about how women's basketball handles its biggest stars. The WNBA spent decades begging for mainstream attention, praying for casual fans to care, hoping someone would move the needle on ratings and attendance. Then Caitlin Clark shows up and does exactly that. She brings 3 million viewers to regular season games. She sells out arenas in cities that have never cared about women's basketball. She makes the WNBA culturally relevant in a way it's never been before. And how does the establishment respond? By making her prove herself over and over again. By treating her stardom as something suspicious rather than something to celebrate. By creating arbitrary standards that somehow only apply to her. Angel Reese gets to start. Paige Buchers gets to start. But Caitlin, who just won Rookie of the Year averaging 19.2 points and 8.4 assists, has to wait her turn. Think about the message this sends. It tells young players that popularity is a liability. It tells fans that their enthusiasm doesn't matter. It tells media partners and sponsors that women's basketball doesn't actually want to grow. It just wants to maintain control over who gets opportunities and when. And that's a catastrophically short-sighted approach for a league that's finally experiencing real growth. The comparison to how other sports handle their stars is striking. When LeBron James was 23 years old, he was already the face of Team USA Basketball. When Connor McDavid entered the NHL, he was immediately given every opportunity to showcase his talent. When Lionel Messi was a teenager, Barcelona built their entire system around him. That's how you treat generational talent. You don't make them earn respect through some arbitrary apprenticeship program. You recognize what they bring to the table and you maximize it. But women's basketball operates differently. There's this persistent belief that young players need to pay their dues, that success has to be rationed out slowly, that stardom is something you earn through years of loyalty rather than through performance. And maybe that made sense when the league was struggling for attention. Maybe gatekeeping was necessary when opportunities were scarce, but that's not the reality anymore. The WNBA is experiencing unprecedented growth, and that growth is directly tied to players like Caitlin Clark. Watch that initial interaction again from the press conference. When the reporter asks about the lineup featuring Caitlin, Nate Tibbetts talks around her. He discusses the group's shooting and creativity without acknowledging the player who led the entire league in assists. It's not an accident. It's a deliberate choice to minimize her impact, to frame her success as a collective achievement rather than individual brilliance. Now compare that to how Chelsea Gray discusses Angel Reese and Paige Buchers. She names them specifically. She describes their games in detail. She talks about their growth and development with genuine enthusiasm. The contrast is jarring, and it reveals something important about how USA Basketball views different players. Some players are embraced immediately. Others have to prove they belong despite overwhelming evidence that they've already earned their place. The frustrating part is that this isn't even about Caitlin's performance in these exhibitions. By all accounts, she's played well when given opportunities. She's running the offense efficiently, creating for teammates, making the right reads. But she's doing it off the bench while Chelsea Gray, who played just 24 games this season due to a foot injury, gets automatic starting spots. That's not a basketball decision, that's a political decision. And here's the thing about beat reporters and their relationships with these programs. The journalists in that room know exactly what's happening. They can see the awkwardness, they can read the body language. They know that when Nate Tibbetts refuses to say Caitlin's name while discussing the rotation, it's not an oversight, but they don't push back. They don't ask the obvious follow-up questions. They let USA Basketball control the narrative because maintaining access is more important than getting truth. That's why moments like this matter. When we see clear evidence of politics overriding performance, when we watch coaches and administrators tie themselves in knots trying to justify decisions that make no basketball sense, we have to call it out. Because if we don't, if we just accept these non-answers and move on, then nothing changes. The same gatekeepers keep making the same decisions, and talented players keep getting marginalized for reasons that have nothing to do with their ability. Scott Agnes, the reporter asking questions in that press conference, he's been covering USA Basketball for years. He knows how these programs work. He understands the dynamics between coaches and star players. And you can hear in his questions that he's trying to get Tibbetts to explain the inexplicable. But Tibbetts won't engage. He deflects to team concepts and rotation strategies without ever addressing the elephant in the room. Why is the WNBA's assist leader coming off the bench? What makes this particularly awkward for USA Basketball is the timing. These exhibitions are happening in February 2025, just 7 months after the Olympic controversy. The criticism hasn't faded. Fans still remember. And now, instead of taking the opportunity to show that Caitlin is fully integrated into the program, that the Olympic snub was just about roster construction, they're doubling down. They're making it clear that she's still on the outside looking in. This dynamic is going to continue unless something changes dramatically. Cheryl Reeve will remain the head coach through the 2028 Olympics. She's not going anywhere. And as long as she's in charge, as long as the same people who excluded Caitlin from the Olympic team are making roster decisions, we're going to see more of this. More exhibitions where she doesn't start. More press conferences with carefully worded non-answers. More evidence that USA Basketball values loyalty and seniority over performance and star power. So the question becomes, was this approach worth it for USA Basketball? Did maintaining their standard and protecting their established hierarchy justify alienating the player who's brought more attention to women's basketball than anyone in the last decade? Because that's the trade-off they made. They chose institutional control over popular appeal. They chose to send a message about respecting the process rather than embracing their biggest star. And maybe they think that's the right call. Maybe they believe that preserving the culture Cheryl Reeve has built is more important than maximizing Caitlin Clark's impact. But they better hope they're right. Because if Team USA struggles in future competitions, if they lose games they should win because their offense gets stagnant and they lack playmaking, every decision they made to minimize Caitlin's role will be scrutinized. Every exhibition game where she came off the bench will be cited as evidence of organizational failure. The reality is that women's basketball is at a crossroads. The sport has momentum for the first time in its history. Ratings are up, attendance is up, sponsorship deals are getting bigger, and a huge portion of that growth is directly attributable to Caitlin Clark and the attention she's brought to the game. So USA Basketball has a choice. They can embrace that momentum, build around their most popular player, and ride this wave to unprecedented success. Or they can dig in, protect their established order, and risk squandering the best opportunity women's basketball has ever had. Based on what we saw in that press conference, based on the rotation decisions and the carefully worded non-answers, it's pretty clear which path they've chosen. And that should concern everyone who cares about the future of this sport, because opportunities like this don't come around often, and once they're gone, they don't come back. So here's my question for you. If you were advising USA Basketball right now, would you tell them to keep doing what they're doing, or would you tell them to start Caitlin Clark and build around the player who's actually driving growth in women's basketball? Because they can't have it both ways. They can't claim they want to grow the game while simultaneously marginalizing their biggest star. At some point, they have to choose, and based on these exhibitions, they've already made their choice. The question is whether they'll regret it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think there's an agenda here, or is this just normal roster management? And if you found this analysis valuable, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're going to keep covering these stories that everyone else is too afraid to touch. The WNBA and USA Basketball need accountability, and we're going to provide it.